Today, in Europe, we like to think of ourselves as a free bunch of individuals, who are limitless in their expression of faith. Well, some of us. But it wasn't long ago, in a time where whole empires would burn in a baptism of fire, simply for the sake of God. With that, today we'll be discussing the Bohemian Revolt, and its roadway to one of the bloodiest conflicts in history. As with events in Europe throughout the early modern era, the 30 Years' War is both incredibly long and incredibly complex. The main reason we can pin down would be that of Catholics versus Protestants. Not only was religion an issue, of course, there were old rivalries between the monarchs of Spain and France, France and Burgundy, and the Habsburgs, and well, everybody, you do get the point. By this point, France and Spain had long been fighting each other through means of a proxy war, basically rebellion, with the coronation of King Henry IV in 1594, which led to ultra-Catholics to rebel, funded by Spain and armed by Spain, which broke out into a full-scale war between France and Spain in 1595, though France doesn't actually join the 30 Years' War till far later. But anyway, at the start of the 17th century would be the same, with the Huguenot Rebellion in 1620. Now, the Holy Roman Empire, or I'm going to refer to it as the HRE, itself was in almost constant religious strife after the separation of the Catholic Church. The Protestant, actually, I'm going to jump in here quickly. The HRE, you find after the death of Frederick II, you get a lot of states acting independent, so it's an empire. But the emperor holds power, but really not as much power as you think he might. It's a very strange thing. I encourage you to look it up. But the Protestant Reformation affected many of the European powers greatly, and hence caused the outbreak of war regularly. Eventual agreement was only reached through the combination of compromise and pressure, so that the resulting Peace of Augsburg of 1555 had many imprecisions and loopholes that would be the source of subsequent disputes. This peace was one of the main reasons why the HRE would not be involved in any other religious war for a whole 60 years until the 30 Years' War. By 1604, there had already been a lot, and I mean a lot, of religious street brawls in free imperial cities throughout the empire. On occasion, the emperor and the Hofrat had to issue orders to armed forces to put these down. Nevertheless, there have been relatively minor incidents without any properly significant repercussions. However, these attempts at restoring order had caused public outcry with accusations of tyranny. The Calvinists and the Lutherans formed a union body that wasn't formally known as Protestant, though it was, and obviously, well, the response by the Catholics was to also form a union. It was supported, well, from mainly southern German states, with the great majority of its members being ecclesiastical entities. 3 Catholic electorates up further north, Cologne, Mainz and Trier, did not join immediately, although they did join soon after the war started, but that would be a solid background to some of the religious issues. By mid-1605, the Habsburg territories were in turmoil. Hungary was in the hand of the Bůžek and his rebels, and they were invading Moravia. Bohemia was still simmering over an anti-Protestant Vladislav edict, and confrontation was beginning to loom in Upper and Lower Austria between Protestant nobility and Catholic administration of Klesl and the Archduke Matthias, who ran Bohemia. Meanwhile, Emperor Rudolf, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, became something of a recluse to his castle in Prague. Keeping his public and private meetings to a minimum, his mental state declined to a deep depression, and his decisions, even if relatively minor, would always need the royal seal of approval and the emperor's signature upon them, which normally would be reserved for wide-spanning and important reforms, but he would take every single government decision and need to sign it. Now, the Spanish side of the family apart, the ones who were to inherit the throne would be Archduke Matthias, the emperor's brother. Moreover, Rudolf's insistence on not marrying left his succession, well, it made it a massive weakening question about his throne and the family future, and the disastrous war with the Ottomans in 1606 further greatly diminished imperial strength as he failed to complete his war aims. He won the war, but he failed to complete any aims of that war, so, well, he was seen as a bit of a joke. And the emperor was forced to sign both a costly peace treaty with the Hungarian rebels and the Ottoman Sultan, which destroyed his public reputation. Rivalry within the dynasty escalated in violent clashes between the emperor and his brother Matthias. whom were in no position to fight without making extensive concessions to the nobility, which were made in 1608. A similar position threatened in the empire, where the Elector Palatine was attempting to mobilise support for a militant Protestant solution to the constitutional issues in the empire, while also waging a campaign for specific safeguards to counteract a Catholic majority in imperial institutions. Now, Maximilian himself defended majority voting in imperial institutions, but nonetheless refused to defer entirely to the unreliable Habsburgs. Due to his brother's illness, Matthias would soon absorb the throne of his brother, replacing his Holy Roman Empire, although he seemed to be more into the title than actually any of the power. He wanted it, but he didn't want the job that came with it. With this, the Protestants had lost, well, the safeguards of their voice in the empire, because the Holy Roman Emperor was now Catholic, which, you know, things are going to become predominantly Catholic, and moreover, Protestants were personally disadvantaged by the resumption of Catholic rule, and thus the radical minority rebelled in 1618, which is what we're about to cover. The moderates refused to follow them precisely because they still believed that a peaceful end could be achieved, and now we get on to the bloodshed. As was already indicated, several of the Bohemian Protestant leaders feared losing religious freedoms that had been granted to them by Emperor Rudolf II in his Letter of Majesty 1609. They instead preferred Frederick V, the Palatine Elector, who founded the Protestant Union and succeeded Frederick IV. Other Protestants, on the other hand, agreed with the Catholics' approach, and in 1617 the Bohemian estates formally elected Ferdinand to be the crown prince, and upon death of Matthias, the future king of Bohemia. In May 1618, the king-elect dispatched 2 Catholic councillors to Prague Castle as his deputies. In his absence, Ferdinand wanted them to run a government, and, well, they were taken by a group of Protestants on May 23rd and thrown out of the palace window, which was about 17 metres or 56 feet to the ground below, along with Secretary Philip Fabricius. Amazingly, despite their injuries, they lived, and the Bohemian Revolt was sparked by this incident, known as the Third Defenestration of Prague. It wasn't long until the Bohemian War spread throughout every region of the Bohemian crown, including Bohemia, Silesia, Upper and Lower Lusatia, and Moravia. Had the rebellion remained a local revolt, the war would have been over in a matter of months, but the death of Emperor Matthias only further emboldened the rebels. In search of friends, Frederick let the Bohemians join the Union and come under its protection. They made hints that he would ascend to the throne as King of Bohemia. However, comparable proposals were made to the Prince of Transylvania, the Elector of Saxony, and the Duke of Savoy by other members of the Bohemian estates. Ambrogio Spinola Doria, the first Marquis of Los Balbases and first Duke of Sesto, a prominent Italian-Spanish general, led an army dispatched from Brussels to support the emperor. Additionally, Protestant Saxony was convinced to assist against Bohemia in exchange for control of Lusatia by Don Igo Velez de Orte, the Spanish ambassador to Vienna. They also agreed to contribute roughly 2 million ducats in provisioning and payment of the army, as well as its free company contingents. The armies of the Protestant Union were prevented from assisting the Saxon invasion by the Spanish army in the west. In exchange for his backing and that of the Catholic League, Orte planned to give the Duke of Bavaria the electoral title from the Palatinate. Upper Austria was brought under the control by the Catholic League's army led by Johann Zerklaes, Count of Tilly, which also featured René Descartes as an observer. Lower Austria was brought under control by imperial forces led by Count of Bucquoy. Together, the two armies advanced to Bohemia to the north. On November 8, 1620, Ferdinand II soundly defeated Frederick V at the Battle of White Mountain close to Prague, which I will cover in another video, and the League of Evangelical Union, and that rolls off the tongue, was defeated and Frederick V's assets were forfeited. Frederick was expelled from the Holy Roman Empire, and the Rhenish Palatinate, one of his possessions, was granted to Catholic nobility. His distant relative, Duke Maximillan of Bavaria, was given the title of Elector of the Palatinate. Quick note, I keep pronouncing the Palatinate as the Palatinate. Don't bite my neck off, I realise I made this mistake. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it. I will be covering the Battle of the White Mountain apart and other Bohemian Revolt battles. I think there are 4 others. I think there were 5 in total. And then I'll get on to the actual main parts of the war. But I hope you enjoyed. I thought this was a bit different. I actually did put a lot of research into this one through scholarly resources. I used my university's library, so hopefully you enjoyed it. It is complicated. I tried to simple it. It's roughly they rebel, 2 leagues are formed, the emperor who's weak dies, etc. But yes, so I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later, guys.